I gotta make this intro quick because if you blink, you'll miss the stadium placement. Now, for those of you just discovering my channel and just kind of getting to know who I am and all that, my name is Michael and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share my thoughts on video games in the life simulation gaming space. Hopefully the stadium is being placed right in front of you because today we are building out two lots. One being, of course, the stadium that I mentioned before, and of course the hospital, as I'm sure that you guessed from the title and the thumbnail on this video. With the stadium, honestly, I didn't need to overthink it. I didn't need to reinvent the wheel on that one. I just pretty much copied the one from Starlight Shores, which came with the expansion pack Showtime, and pasted it here because it really worked for my world and I needed a large venue, and it was going to be the only large venue that I have in my SimCity world. So it was just a copy and paste job. I just put in some lighting, and of course I dropped in a subway station to actually get to it. I did fiddle around a little bit with the turning of it just because I wanted the front entrance to face the parking lot, because to me that would make sense. And yeah, I really love how it just sits in there. It was a really easy copy and paste job, and I'm very happy that it just turned out the way that it did. Plus it also provides that large venue opportunity for those of you that play with Showtime careers. Very happy with it, glad it's there, and it was just like the easiest thing in the world to do, which is why I'm combining this episode, of course, with the hospital episode. Now, before we talk about the hospital design and all that, I did want to mention that there is a rhyme and reason for the way that I am placing these different subway stations. And when all of the subway stations are actually placed in my SimCity world here, I will give you guys a proper metro map, so that you get a look at what I had in the back of my mind when placing down those stops, because I actually do have some sort of a network design in mind. Mind you, it's something that you'd really have to imagine as you're playing the game, but it's still something that I kind of kept in mind here. Because one thing that kind of bothered me is just how like you can place subway stops and they just really wouldn't make sense from a network perspective. Yes, I do play a lot of City Skylines and all that in my free time, and unfortunately I'm having issues trying to record those episodes, but that is a problem that I will deal with at another time. But yeah, I still wanted it to be relatively realistic within the SimCity Sims 3 context. So yeah, I'll explain that subway network at a later time. This episode is honestly going to feel really short, really simple in comparison to the last 3 Speedbuild episodes that I've done. So the last 3 episodes I really did was that library episode. We would have done Crumple Bottom Chateau, and of course the observatory tower from Into the Future. All those builds were a lot more robust, they were a lot more complicated, whereas the stadium was honestly just like a copy and paste situation with just a couple of objects here and there. And then the hospital here is something that I actually had to do a little bit of work with, and that's something that I had anticipated, since I wanted the hospital to be on a slightly higher elevation, but not so high that it would make the ramps feel out of place. So yeah, that was really the vision here, as you see on screen, is that I wanted like some sort of a vehicular roundabout and like a little bit of a parking lot to make the parking lot make sense from what I designed in Create a World. So yeah, the hospital object that I placed is actually the one from Sunset Valley, if I remember correctly. It's one of the ones that came with the base game, so I decided to place it there because a lot of the other hospital objects, and I'm calling them objects, but they're really rabbit holes, and I should probably refer to them as such. The hospital rabbit holes that come with the game, a lot of them are multifunctional, meaning that a lot of times that they are combined with like the science building, or I think there's one combined with the military building. And I really wanted the hospital to be its own standalone function because I have planned to actually build out the science building and also like the military building elsewhere. In fact, I've already done the military build. It was the Coast Guard build that I did way back towards the beginning of this speed build series for SimCity. So you can check that out if you really are curious where the military is going to be hanging out. But yeah, With the hospital, if I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I really don't like any of the rabbit holes that came with the game, that are just standalone hospitals. The other ones that have multifunctions look nicer in my opinion, like they're just designed a little bit better. And this one was just kind of bulky. It just kind of felt a little, yeah, I just really don't like the design in general, but it was what I had to work with. And the other option was really the same thing, only in blue, and it looked very old and not in a good way, kind of old. So I didn't care for that. So yeah, this was the one that I went with, and I am sticking to it. But yeah, I wanted like an elevated roundabout, so that the idea was that there would be a lot of vehicles that would circulate just around the hospital itself. So you'd have those ambulance drop-offs, and you'd have patient pickups. And the trick here is just that, or the idea here is just that cars would always be circulating around it. Like you would never have a traffic jam here. You would literally pull over to the side, pick up the patient that you're picking up, and then you would just continue on your own merry way. For that reason, I have decided to make the roadways a certain size, and this is something that I'm doing throughout the entire SimCity here, is that the standard that I'm using for size for roadways is just like 6 wide, so 6 squares wide. And so that was something that I had to design when doing the roundabout. Now, normally, under normal circumstances, because this game doesn't do curves very well, like I would have made these curved corners as opposed to these really sharp corners, but you know, that's just a limitation of the game, and so I just have to play the hand that I'm dealt with in this kind of an instance here. As for the rest of this, the hospital build out here, the reason why I wanted to put it on a foundation and essentially like double the work that I actually needed to is that I wanted to bring more visual intrigue to the hospital. So many times, like when I have built SimCity priorly, like in old versions just for my own personal use, I would always end up hiding the hospital somewhere, and it just would never look right. It would always feel out of place, even if I do surround it with a bunch of high-rise buildings. So this time I decided to really take it out from the downtown tower clusters that I will eventually end up playing and building right for your very eyes. But yeah, I ended up taking it outside those kind of tower clusters and just to make it its own destination, its own place. And seeing as how I had some land built out from the Create a World series that was just adjacent to the stadium build, I knew that I wanted to have the hospital also complemented as well. And I also wanted the hospital rabbit hole to be some sort of a white to complement the Starlight Shores stadium too. So a lot of those considerations were taken into place. And if you guys aren't already familiar with my Create a World series, something that I haven't really been very explicit about sharing with you guys is that every lot, I have noted it down in a notebook. So I know exactly where I want certain lots at certain places. So this hospital destination has been planned out for a very long time, at least a couple of months now. I would almost say even 4 months ago, since I filmed these so far in advance. I'm filming this episode in December, by the way, and I don't think you guys are going to get this episode until February. So yeah, I've had it planned out for a very long time where I wanted the hospital to actually sit, and same with the stadium as well. I designed it in that way just so that it would help to taper down the skyline, because the skyline kind of does something a little, I want to say a little strange, but it just adds a lot more intrigue to it. When looking at the skyline from Belladonna Valley, there are some peaks to it that I really wanted to highlight, and one of those peaks was at the Government Plaza. So we had the observatory tower from the Into the Future expansion pack just kind of heading the most northern tip of it. And then it's also nearby the City Hall and the police station, both from the Roaring Heights Custom Sims 3 world, which are very tall buildings. But there's also the library, which I would consider to be like a middle density kind of building. That's also what I consider to be the stadium and the hospital here are mid-density structures. And so the idea here is just to kind of have that peak at the very northern end of it, and then it just tapers down to some mid-density buildings, and then it'll peak again as we get closer to the actual central business district and downtown neighborhoods. So yeah, there's a lot more towers planned, there's a lot more structures planned, and there's a nice big green patch just north of the central business district that I absolutely plan to make into a couple of parks. So, there's a lot to do, a lot to go on, and a lot to build still to come with this series. And even though I'm kind of knocking out 2 within one video here, or 2 builds within one video, I could not justify dedicating an entire video to just with the stadium. So yeah, that just would have been a really crap video, if I'm gonna be completely honest. Whereas here, like when building the hospital, I can actually show you guys a little bit of my mindset when thinking about how to place these rabbit holes. And so yeah, with this rabbit hole structure, it's okay. Like I mentioned before, like I really don't like the actual 3D model of the hospital structure that I chose, but it was kind of the only one I could choose. And I really just, I just kind of placed it in here. And I also wanted to make sure that I gave it some more intrigue and some more interest into the area. And one of the easiest and hardest ways to do that is by playing with the elevation and with foundations, as you'll see on the screen. So yeah, I played with the heights a little bit, I lowered the terrain around those foundation walls to really kind of give it that sense of height. I added some stairs into the foundations as well, because staircases is honestly another like low-hanging fruit in a way to actually add some intrigue to it. I got really lucky though, I have to say, because when I was placing the staircases to the ground level foundation, like not the mezzanine level, technically speaking, not the driveway level, but to the sidewalk level, it didn't conform the terrain too much. Like it's unnoticeable. Like I don't even think you guys will. I think you'll barely notice it here, and so I really got lucky on that one, because when I was doing the Old Town retail corner build a few months ago at this point, I really struggled with that. And even with the Old Town Station restaurant, I also had some issues with the terrain not being with the terrain just kind of buckling underneath the stairs, which is so annoying. Like I almost feel like that shouldn't be the case with these stairs. So it just might be a user error in this case as opposed to a gameplay limitation. Comment below. Comment below if it's a user error. But yeah, where we are in this series right now is that we have clearly moved on from the government district, the government campus district that I keep referring to it as. And so we are making our way towards the downtown districts. And so what's really encompassing downtown is we've got the central business district. We've also got like some sort of a central park district that I've got to create, because I put in a couple of lots for that as well. And I really want to build those out as separate, like greener lots, including some sort of a plaza of some sort. I'll explain that vision a little later on, because I sort of want to build out the city a little more, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But on our way to those downtown districts, being the central business district, the midtown and uptown neighborhoods, we kind of have to make a pit stop, sort of like we did with the poolside club. And this pit stop is where we are right now in today's episode, just with the stadium and the hospital builds that are absolutely necessary to this series. And so yeah, that's kind of my logistics here. We started in the harbor, we went up the eastern side, we went westwards and hit the northern neighborhood of the government campus there, and now we're going down the western side of the coast, just kind of hitting these two lots and then moving finally central. So yeah, that's kind of the pattern that we are going in this case. And yeah, I really think it's a great pattern to go into. I do want to build this out quite substantially. And yeah, I'm very excited to finally take us into the heart of downtown and to finally make SimCity look like an actual city. So a lot of exciting things on the horizon there. I finally get to add in more workplaces. I mean, technically the hospital counts as a workplace as well. At this time, I'm going to kindly ask you to put your comment fingers on bed rest for just a minute here, because I'm sure that you realized by now that the last speed build episode that I had actually published was the Crumple Bottom Chateau, which is nowhere near the downtown neighborhoods. And you would absolutely be right. You see, at the time that I am recording this and filming this and building up the world, I know for a fact that it is probably on the heels of me releasing the SimCity world for actual public download. And so what I really want to do is I want to export that world and offer it as a public download, just with blank lots on it. Like I want it to be a complete blank slate for players. That is absolutely intended, and I also think that it will upload more smoothly to players' computers and their video games. But what I also want to do is I also want to offer you guys right away a bunch of lots that you can download if you don't want to build out the world, because the world is honestly huge. There's over 180 lots. Like, I even think that there's like 201 lots if I am remembering this correctly. And you know, even though I am building out this world with you guys, I also understand that world building is not everybody's cup of tea. So I want to at least offer some of the functional lots so that you guys can at least get in there and play your game and not have to worry too much about actually building out the world. So that's what I mean by spot building, is that I'm just going to be building out lots that need to be built in order for your game to function. So what that puts on my plate to actually build out for you guys is it puts, let me see if I'm remembering this correctly. I guess I shouldn't have done the mansion build, but I did it anyways. But it puts the grocery store on the list. Now I'm not going to build out all the community lots possible. I'm just going to have to release those lots at a later time. Otherwise, you guys never would get the world. But yeah, it puts the grocery store on the list of lots to build. It also puts a school, which would be in Blue Water Village. So there's the grocery store, the school, and also the graveyard would need to be built as well. And so yeah, I am using the opportunity that was given to me, which was the fact that my Create a World series has definitely ended by this time. And I am just using that extra video slot to do some spot building before I start going back into neighborhoods and continuing to build up the neighborhoods completely. So yeah, when we get to it, like eventually you'll see certain places that were built, and yeah, I will certainly do that. Actually, you know what? Now that I'm saying it out loud, I might throw in like a starter home in there just to satisfy that in there too. So yeah, that's kind of the itinerary going forward with this series, is that I'm just doing a little bit of spot building before releasing the SimCity world. And I'm sure that you guys are wondering when the SimCity world will be released. Well, I'm going to drop a trailer when exactly that will occur. At the time I am filming this, I still have to do some edits off camera and some last minute adjustments here and there to the SimCity world. And yeah, I am trying to sign up for the Sims file share. So hopefully by the time you guys watch this video, they'll approve me and all that jazz, because I just feel like the best way to organize both a world download and also several lot downloads is to organize it using the Sims file share. And because what you can do is you can set in some folders in there, here and there. So yeah, that's kind of the plan going forward, which is how to share it. Of course, like I will be publishing it to the Mod The Sims, so that'll be a place to have it published and all that. But yeah, just watch out for the trailer, because as soon as the trailer drops, that's when the world will be released. And at this time, because I am filming this episode pretty far in advance, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'm filming this in December, it is very hard for me to actually give you a concrete date at this time. So stay tuned, enjoy the journey and all that jazz. But yeah, back to the build. The thing with the hospital build and with just kind of decorating the areas surrounding it is that I just kept it as simple as I possibly could. The Sims 3 honestly doesn't do ramps very well. Like, you have to paint terrain and then you have to smooth the terrain out. So you'll see me, if you haven't already, you'll see me kind of make a mistake where I made the ramps a little too long for it to, for me to fit the little roadway through it to gain access to the parking lot and all that. So yeah, you'll see me adjust that mistake there. And yeah, with the ramps, it can be very hard to actually maneuver. I once built like a condo on top of an underground parking lot and it had a ramp in it. Now, if you know anything about The Sims 3 and digging deep, you'll know that as soon as I loaded up that game, the parking garage was completely flooded, because you get to a point when you dig too deep in The Sims 3 that it just automatically fills it with water, which is the dumbest thing ever, if you ask me. But at the same time, we also don't get like official water. Well, actually, we do get water tools. We have the whole pond tool. So I don't know why it just automatically fills certain depths with water, but you won't be seeing any underground parking lots for this entire speed build series. At most, I might drop in like a basement and then just put it underground there, and you guys will just have to live with the illusion and with making it up in your head that there's a ramp somewhere that leads down. As we finish up the episode, just laying down some of the final vegetation pieces and some benches and all that, I just want to let you know what is coming up next on this channel. So, like I mentioned before, I am going to start doing some spot building now, and the next episode will be the build out of the Central Business District. Specifically, I have two builds in mind. It is going to be a business tower and also the science building as well. And it is finally going to actually add some much needed height and girth to the skyline when looking at the entirety of SimCity. So I'm very excited for those. And of course, like, I will start to interchange those kind of episodes with some spot building, just so that by the time the SimCity world is ready for download, you guys will have a collection of lots to download if you so choose. To just place in your world so that it at least functions on a very basic level for you guys. I will continue, of course, to build out lots and all that with the speed build series here, but I just kind of want to make sure that you guys have access to those very basic functions, such as like having a school and a grocery store. Anyways, I've already kind of mentioned what that vision was. At this time, I am just going to say thank you so much for watching. If the tours aren't playing already, please stick around for the final looks and tours of what we have built in today's episode, being the stadium and the hospital. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being so invested in this series. I do appreciate it all, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.